the lost anti-gravity tech of the Grubenyakov. One of those evenings when the moon hung over the steppe as if pinned to the black velvet of the sky by an invisible needle, and the air was so transparent it seems you could reach out and touch the stars, something occurred in a remote Siberian village that still defies the boundaries of conventional physics. There, amid endless fields and solitary pines, lived a man whose name is now spoken in whispers, sometimes with reverence, sometimes with disbelief, sometimes with quiet hope. His name was Viktor Stepanovich Grebennikov, and he was neither an academician, nor a professor, nor even an engineer in the strict sense of the word. He was an entomologist, a scientist who studied insects, but it was in the wings of beetles and bees that he saw what he believed could change everything. Imagine this: you're sitting in a shed surrounded by jars of alcohol-preserved beetles, and in your hands you hold not a microscope, but something far greater, the key to a secret humanity has sought for centuries among the stars, in magic, in dreams of flight without wings. What if gravity were not a law, but merely a habit? What if it could be tricked, just as one tricks a shadow? It is precisely about this and more that our story unfolds, where science meets wonder, and wonder tries to explain itself through formulas. Viktor Stepanovich was born in 1927, at a time when the country was building its future from brick and steel, and dreams of lightness and freedom seemed almost treasonous. Yet even as a child, he noticed that the world around him was not just a collection of objects and phenomena, but something alive, pulsing, filled with hidden rhythms. He would spend hours watching ants, bees, and dragonflies, seeing not chaos in their movements, but an intricate harmony. Later, as an entomologist, he didn't merely classify insects. He tried to understand their language, their structure, their connection to space. And one day, while studying beehives and the shells of scarab beetles, he noticed something strange. If empty insect casings were arranged in a certain way, for instance in a multi-layered lattice mimicking the structure of a hive, something arose above this construction that couldn't be seen with the eye but could be felt on the skin. It caused mild dizziness, goosebumps on the arms, a sensation that the air above the structure had become denser yet simultaneously lighter. It wasn't magnetism, it wasn't electricity, and certainly not an illusion. It was something entirely different, something Grubenyakov called the cavity structures effect. He began experimenting, at first cautiously, with small samples, then more boldly. He collected honeycombs, beetle shells, even carved replicas of these natural structures from wood and plastic. And each time he arranged them in a specific geometry, a field appeared above them, capable of repelling gravity. Not completely, of course, not like in science fiction novels where ships soar into the sky without noise or smoke, but enough to reduce the weight of an object placed above such a platform by several percent, enough to make the needle on a scale tremble, enough to quicken the heartbeat of a scientist. He recorded everything: sensations, measurements, experimental conditions. He even built a small platform, a wooden frame onto which he mounted hundreds of bee combs, and once, yielding to a reckless impulse, sat on it himself. And then it happened. The moment he later described in his diaries as light hovering. The platform didn't lift off, but he felt his body become about 10% lighter. And when he raised his hand, it moved more slowly as if through water, yet without resistance. It wasn't a hallucination. It was a reality he held in his hands, like holding a bird, carefully so as not to startle it. But why bee combs specifically? Why the structure of beetle shells? Grebennikov was convinced that nature had long ago solved the very problem scientists had struggled with for centuries. After all, bees don't build their hives randomly. They create perfect geometry where each cell is a hexagon, the most efficient shape for storing honey and larvae. But according to Viktor Stepanovich, it wasn't just about saving wax. It was an antenna, a resonator, a natural field generator capable of interacting with space-time at a level beyond our coarse perception. He compared such structures to crystals, which also possess an ordered internal lattice and can influence energy. Only crystals are dead, while cones are alive. They carry within them the memory of life, of flight, of sunlight absorbed into wax. And it was precisely this living geometry, in his view, that produced the anti-gravity effect. He sought no mysticism in it. He sought a pattern, a law hidden not in Einstein's equations, but in the wing of a dragonfly. Naturally, his work was not met with enthusiasm. On the contrary, most of his colleagues dismissed it as the eccentricity of an aging entomologist. In scientific circles, then as now, a rigid hierarchy reigned. If you worked from an institute, an academy, or big science, your discoveries weren't discoveries at all, just fantasies. Grebennikov didn't try to prove his point at conferences. He simply kept working. In his house, among the fields, he assembled a real laboratory, not from expensive equipment, but from whatever was at hand: wooden frames, wax plates, old scales, and homemade sensors. He photographed his experiments, filmed them on tape, and logged every reading. Once, he even built a small device, something like a sled on an anti-gravity cushion, and, tying it to a rope, launched it upward. The device rose several meters and hovered until the balance of the structure was disturbed. It wasn't flight, but it was a step into the unknown. And Viktor Stepanovich knew, if only he had resources, if only someone had listened, he could have done so much more. But the world wasn't ready. Yet his ideas did not vanish. After his death in 2001, his manuscripts, diaries, and photographs were published, first in Samizdat, then online. And then something remarkable happened. Dozens, then hundreds of enthusiasts around the world began repeating his experiments. Some collected cones, others carved hexagonal grids from plastic, still others tried to simulate the effect on computers. Some claimed they felt the same sensations: mild dizziness, altered time perception, even a strange warmth above the structure. Others felt nothing and called it all fiction. But even skeptics couldn't deny one thing. Grubenyakov described his experiments with such precision, such attention to detail, that fabricating them would have been harder than replicating them. He didn't speak of free energy or cosmic rays. He spoke of specific angles, distances, and materials. He wasn't seeking fame, he was seeking truth. And perhaps he found it, exactly where no one thought to look: in a beehive. So what was really happening above his platform? Modern physics offers no definitive answer. Some researchers suggest it involves quantum effects emerging in ordered structures, a kind of coherence similar to that seen in lasers. Others speak of resonance with Earth's gravitational field. Still others lean toward the idea that space isn't uniform, but has a texture, and certain geometries can create vortices or depressions in it, much like a stone dropped in water. Yet, none of these theories have been experimentally confirmed to a standard acceptable to mainstream science. And still, isn't it astonishing that it was nature, not humans, that hinted at the path? After all, bees have built their hives identically for millions of years. Beetles carry their shells without knowing that a secret lies hidden in their structure. And we humans, with our particle accelerators and satellites, still can't understand how something works that lies right beneath our feet, in the grass, in pollen, in wax. Perhaps Grebennikov was mistaken. Perhaps his sensations were the result of self-suggestion or some as yet unknown physiological effect. But even if that's true, isn't it beautiful that a man, living in the middle of nowhere without laboratories or grants, dared to peer beyond the familiar? Isn't that the very essence of true science? Not confirming what's already known, but asking questions that seem to have no answers. Viktor Stepanovich didn't ask you to take his word for it. He asked you to repeat, to look, to feel. And if you ever find yourself near a beehive, don't hurry away from the buzzing. Stop. Study its structure. Imagine that each cell isn't just a cell, but part of a vast mechanism crafted by nature not only for honey, but for something greater. Perhaps for flight. Perhaps for freedom. Perhaps to remind us that the world is far more wondrous than we're accustomed to believing. And so now the question is yours. Are you ready to see the world differently? Are you ready not to reject what doesn't fit within established boundaries, but to try to understand? You don't have to build an anti-gravity platform, though who knows, but at least ask yourself, what if? What if gravity isn't a chain, but a door? What if the key lies not in outer space, but in your garden? Start small. Take a magnifying glass, find a beetle or a bee. Examine its structure. Read Grebenikov's diaries. Try to replicate even one of his experiments. Not for the sake of a miracle, but out of curiosity. Because curiosity is the engine behind all great discoveries. And who knows, maybe one day you'll feel exactly what he felt. A slight dizziness, goosebumps on your skin, and the sense that the world has suddenly become a little more transparent, a little lighter, a little closer to the stars.